Should we speak about the marketing aspects of these wonderful stones who are back on the scene? Our artisans are rediscovering them because there is a strong demand from the market. Do we really know the different aspects of this world? I'm sure you will give us a new tool to put into the toolbox to be used when we tell the story about these wonderful stones. Loredana, you have the floor, but then we'll give the floor to Azzurra, who will speak about the market and these stones. Thank you very much, Stephen. Before talking about these opaque gemstones, which are less known than rubies, emeralds, I'd like to say something at the beginning. You heard about technicalities in the previous talk, but gemology is also storytelling, speaking about what shops are selling. It's important to be familiar with these materials so that you can tell a story. We do have the task to identify gems, to speak about treatments and so on, but you should tell a different story. You can only guarantee that a gemstone is natural, can be found in nature. Yesterday, we talked about opaque gemstones, which are not transparent. They have been used because of their color throughout history. Human beings were interested in them because they were different from the surrounding rocks. When we were kids, do you remember? We were looking for colored stones on the beach, brought them to our moms. So human beings are curious by nature. Lapis lazuli. First, it comes from a lapis, which means stone in Latin. And lazwan comes from Persian, and that means blue. It's like your name, Azzurra, which means azure, light blue, derives from this Persian word. It's nice to know the origin of a material that has been used for a long time, at least 7,000 years. This material is not a mineral. We might say it's a corundum, a ruby. These two have a chemical composition, crystals. This stone is a rock because it's composed of different minerals. Many of them are light blue. Don't try to remember all these names, Azzurra, sodalites, and so on. These materials compose the rock, which is not found everywhere in the world. Geologists say mineralization because they are not found everywhere. And the minerals inside are all blue. Some of them can be used individually. For example, sodalite is used as an imitation of lapis lazuli. The most ancient ore was in Afghanistan. The mountains of Afghan, high heights, above 4,000 meters, have these mines which provided this material, which had been used by the Babylon people, the Egyptians, the Azzurra. There are some scarabs which were made of lapis lazuli. The gold mask of Tutankhamun was covered in lapis lazuli. That was a rare material, but what was interesting was its color. Look here, other areas of origin, for example, Chile. When that was discovered, it became the stone of that country. Azzurra will expand on that. Note the differences between the color from the material coming from Chile and that from Afghan. One has whitish spots. That is a different mineral, which is not a key element of lapis lazuli, but it's considered an inclusion. It is calcite, which is very widely spread. Marbles are made of calcite. Other areas of origin are Russia. Here you see it's a dark material with brownish spots. Let me tell you one thing about this. This material is porous sometimes. Do you remember the white spots? What about the final customer? Do you think that they like it on blue color? Sorry, Loredana. So what is the market asking you when they come to you to buy them? Well, good morning. Sorry, good afternoon. Now, the approach to these materials is very selective. Considering that the market is ready to absorb these materials, the basic collections of the most important brands that we know, well, they are very selective. There are some features which are natural and which are indeed part of the beauty of this material, are considered as defects. So in the lapis, calcite is, for some producers, is something which is not welcomed. Also, pyrites, and depending on the quantity on the surface, might be something questionable. So our sky has not many stars. And the chairperson says maybe people are not fully aware of the different features, so they cannot tell the right story to the customers. You know, all jewelers should learn to communicate that when something is natural, it cannot be standard. It cannot be perfect. You cannot have the same color, the same hue, the same distribution of inclusions, because it's natural. Azzurra was very clear, says the chairperson. Well, I like that. That's a feature that I consider beautiful. So I prefer things which have apparently more defects because that shows it's natural, Loredana. The problem is that people try to standardize what is good and what is bad. So they try to make their advertising activities so that people only like a certain hue of color. Just think of the brilliant cut in diamonds. There was a time when other cuts were difficult to propose. We know that, considering that people want the same color and have uniform things, the market tries to modify colors so that they can remove, for example, the white spots, and they impair the natural nature. So, and they have treated stones because they use paraffin and things like that. Indeed, these are things that we identify in the labs. That's a color which had been dyed, and the customer was happy because the color was uniform. Just think that. Oh, I like very much what Thomas said. He never said lab grown. He said synthetic. He never said lab grown. In colored gemstones, we know that there are synthetic gems. There are also materials that used to be called synthetic, but they were simply imitations. Also, natural materials were imitated, attempts were made, and that was easy. Making powder, dyed aggregates, adding pyrites so that it could appear natural. This is an imitation which is called Gilson imitation. It's easy to identify because you see there is a blue instead of a light blue. In colored gemstones world and the diamond world, there are imitation moissanites, Jansens are imitations. And there are materials which were used as imitations, quartz, magnesite, porcelain, synthetic spinel, and so on. You might wonder, lapis lazuli, is that imitated? Yes, once people said that hard gemstones were worthless, but indeed their value is increasing, I think. Azzurra, yes, year after year, because the quantity available on the market is limited. So what happens in colored gemstones world is different. I mean, the performance in the market. When the demand goes up, the supply gets limited. So what happens in certain quality products? All companies ask for a specific type of quality, and so the quotations, the prices go up. One should be constructive and defend the idea of maintaining a certain quality standard. The main difference is made by the knowledge of the material by the different companies. There are companies who are more aware of the features and the limited quantities in the market, and they are very constructive. Other companies are very selective right from the start, and that should not be forgotten. Loredana. That's why gemmology is needed by producers. Something which is a part of the history of this stone, well, this material is the one which was used in ancient times as a pigment. It should be processed to obtain the blue color. And there are many archaeological findings which are blue. And the pigment taken from what is called blue beyond the sea. And the name is this because it came from beyond the seas, beyond the Mediterranean Sea, i.e. the Afghanistan country. And it came through the old Silk Road and by sea. These are important elements so that you can tell your customer this story. you might help the people in the shops to tell the story. We spoke about blue. About sapphire, we called about the Virgin cloak. Nobody saw the Virgin, with the exception of those who saw the appearances. So we have to watch the paintings, and they used the blue pigment that came from lapis lazuli or sapphire. So we could say that the virgin cloak color comes from lapis lazuli. That was used very much in the frescoes. The pigment is not stable in the open air. For example, it's vulnerable to rain, in particular to acid rain. So it's used in the pictures or indoors. We have incredible examples here, indeed. That comes from the Scrovegni chapels in Padua, the blue skies by Giotto. The seas were painted in blue. Then, during the Renaissance, there was a time when stones were used to make mosaics. If you go to the factory of art stones, you see wonderful mosaics. The little tables made with stones. Here you see examples of skies and seas made with lapis lazuli. Just look at this wonderful table with a view of the Livorno harbor, and they indeed used these rocks and these minerals. I have always been fascinated by this. During the Renaissance, this material was used to make objects. This is the Museum of Silver in Florence. You have these vases made with lapis lazuli. Are they useful? Maybe not, but they are simply beautiful. So this is the idea of a beautiful object. It's a pleasure for your heart. I mean, having a lapis lazuli or quartz vase is not useful, but that's simply beautiful. Here we have antique objects from the Medici family, with a jug made by Bacellati with lapis lazuli stones on silver. Just to show you beautiful objects, they finely made, and they were used to make engravings, as they used to do during the times of the Roman. And indeed, Fabergé used lapis lazuli to make one of his famous eggs. Here we have some examples from the beginning of the past century to make items. The clock by Cartier is very famous, made with opaque stones, mother of pearl, jade, lapis lazuli, together with other materials we'll see soon. This has been used in modern jewelry also. If you have a jewelry shop or browse through the magazines, I'm sure you will identify the different brands. They use the material to convey the name of their company. We know that that's a Louis Vuitton or a Bulgari or a Cartier or a Pomellato or Vermeer. Each of them, well, they have interpreted the material. So the creativity is the key element. Yes, indeed, that was also stressed yesterday. We have to make leverage on that. But indeed, you should associate creativity with the knowledge. That's also important. You might be a very good creative person, but you can make these objects in glass, but having a natural material is important. So you have to be aware of the full supply chain. And Azzurra is very knowledgeable on that. She can convey that to those who purchase the materials and the final customer. Is that right? Yes, is the answer of Azzurra. When you approach a material, well, that should be in line with the style of a brand, because every brand has their own approach to color. There are slight differences which become very important during production. There are some hues or veins of the material. They are important also during the polishing. Even though the stones are opaque, during production the stones are analyzed with a magnifying glass, a lens, to see the microporosities and so on, which are not very much liked by brands. And indeed, meeting the demands of brands is important.
Let me close my overview. What is the next station then? Where are you taking us in this journey? Well, we talked about lapis lazuli and turquoise, and we call them with different gender, but turquoise is a she stone. This comes from very ancient time, pre-Columbian era. Look at these Egyptian statues. For the Egyptians, it was the symbol of the time of the death and the universe. So they were very keen on using this stone. They would use a lot of that for scarabs and for their objects. This is a necklace that had been used by the Aztec and other communities that are now disappeared, and they would use this necklace for religious ceremonies. Apparently, it would grant the possibility to protect against the evil, and this is why they would keep it always on. There are those who might believe in it, and those who might not believe it. Pirandello used to say that, you know, I'm no superstitious, but you never know. These, again, other objects. Red Indians used to say that turquoise could be protecting them when they were go hunting or when they go fighting. Each of them were using the material that they would find where they were. And turquoise is another aggregate. It includes different crystals with the same chemical composition. Copper phosphate. It is to be found next to copper deposits, so you never find it into crystals. Only once did we find a clear crystal in Virginia in the US, and this is the color it has, with green as well, because copper and iron that may be included into this mineral may be tarnished, and when they change also the color. To refer to the tarnishing, you know, you might refer to rust. The rust is iron oxide. So you find something that used to be black that now looks reddish. So you see that with the oxidization, with the burnishing, you may have different colors. This is again turquoise. But as a matter of fact, this is it is colored as if it were turquoise, but it is just turquoise in color because it's a ceramic. The most beautiful turquoise and the deposits that are more age-old come from Iran. Turquoise might not be homogeneous. Indeed, there could be also rocks into it, so it has this kind of web-like structure This web is called Iranian web, but not all these samples have the same pattern. It certainly has a value to it. You see the way turquoise is to be found into the deposits. There are magmatic rocks or sedimentary rocks with turquoise. They come from could be found in sand rock, sandstone. In Egypt, in the Sinai, you can still find very little deposits. So this is the Nishapur mine. In the US, we find the largest deposit still in existence, both in Arizona and New Mexico, California. This is how it looks when it is extracted, and this is the mine located in the US. This is called the Sleeping Beauty because if you look at it, it looks as if it were the outline of a lying down woman with crossed arms. You've been there, right? Well, this is a whole specific story to it. I'm very pleased to listen to your story. Well, the mine, the deposit is now closed. It was the largest deposit of turquoise, and the color is very specific. If you look at it, you can't forget it. As a raw stone, it is very homogeneous. So the raw stone can be used importantly also in high-end jewelry. I believe that considering the oxidization process that we were referring to, we know that the non-treated turquoise would be used also for collections. As of now, it can't be because the material, unless it's treated, undergoes color changes. Hence, it can only be used once it's stabilized in the jewelry collections. I'll tell you what stabilizing entails, but let me show beforehand that even in China, we had quite a number of turquoise, sometimes greenish in color, a bit more porous, but you know, taste may change. And Armenia is one of the most recent deposits, and turquoise only allows us to find small pieces. And this is an issue, of course, that if you wanted to carry out production or have larger pieces of turquoise, well, you cannot use the turquoise coming from Armenia. The color is quite beautiful anyway, of course, yes. Turquoise is porous, may undergo color changes. Hence, it is impregnated sometimes only with wax, so as to protect the surface and to prevent oxidization. At times, in order to process it better, it is integrated with plastic materials. This type of impregnation is called stabilization because it stabilizes the color, it stabilizes also the degree of porosity. This is treatment that is often requested. A number of brands want to work with stabilized turquoise. Other brands only require natural turquoise without it being stabilized. And then there are other potential treatment. One is called the Cesari treatment. and we don't know what it consists of. It is a secret treatment. It is the object of a patent. We know how to acknowledge and recognize it because we come up to a higher percentage of potassium within the turquoise. So chemical tests are performed. The aspect is quite clear. It becomes pretty hard and so you can see immediately with your naked eye what is treated, what is not treated, what is has undergone Zeccheri treatment, or the one that has been stabilized. And then we see an increase in silica, which is not to be found in natural turquoise, and this is called the porcelain treatment that is performed in China, and nobody knows what it is synonymous with. So these are probably chemical treatments, very similar to electrolysis, but the patents are still being protected. They always may perform these treatments somewhere else. You know, from China we get different materials. They're very selective when they import, but when they export anything. Oh, really? Quite sure, quite sure. Some very strange things get to us from China. That we do find imitation turquoise. In these, there's the Gilson synthetic turquoise. Gilson was a chemist who developed synthetic stones, the most important being the emerald. And then there's also something else, which is called turquoise paste. As we have a coral paste or lapis lazuli paste. People may think that it is the dust of previous processing that are pasted together, but as often happens, these are just mineral paste, be them phosphates, carbonates, at best. So they have nothing to do with coral, they have nothing to do with turquoise, if not the aspect. So the outlook is similar to turquoise or coral, but it is not the same at all. So that's why, you know, we should recommend people listening to us to buy something which is not paste and to buy from renowned suppliers. I saw at a necklace with 30 millimeters necklaces that were sold very expensive. So turquoise is very extensive, but the turquoise paste is nothing to do with it, you know, nothing to do with turquoise at all. So in the lab, sometimes we have to identify these materials as well. Then there are the so-called imitation turquoise. Sometimes we have dyed stones. But without a test, you can never know what it is. But turquoise has been quite extensively used on the red carpet as well. Rather than showing off only colored stones and gemstones, there are actresses wearing jewels made with turquoise, with that used by Cameron Diaz is quite extraordinary, but the same is true with the others. Look at the way they match with the different eye colors. As with the stones, you see, you have to look at the texture of the skin of the wearer as well. And here again, I'm sure that you recognize some important brands. So you see the Chanticleer, the Pin by Tiffany, and Pomelato and Cartier. So here you see examples of how of this material being used, also not just for important rings, but for small details and add color. There are other stones that are important as well. Here you see Van Cleef, Buccellati, or the balloon by Vernier. And there's something else that I'd like to share with you. Have you ever Have you ever heard people refer to the doublet with the two different stones joined together? In this case, you might find a piece of turquoise with a hyaline quartz on top. Well, the first doublet that I've seen, and there's an expert in gemology in here, and she saw it together with me with lapis lazuli and another similar color stone. So you see that you can also have the doublet, the joining together of different materials. As you may see, inlays of these gemstones, of these materials, are used also in high-end jewelry, and you can very well recognize the brand as synonymous with the style. Azzurra, over the past few years, we had a growing demand by major brands for this material. Of course, yes. The gemstones that we are looking at, lapis lazuli, turquoise, but do not anticipate what we're about to hear. Well, these materials anyway are considered as noble raw materials, so they're used with in the collections and in one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. Well, some years ago, this was never the case. These materials stopped being used at all. Now there's a translucid opaque material as jade. An old professor of mine used to say that jade does not exist. Or rather, there's more than one type of jade, because jade actually refers to jadeite and nephrite. Jadeite is the one which is rarer, more sought after. It's less porous, the aggregate is much more granular and beautiful, and nephrite is more fibrous. The color is usually not as nice, not the type of green that you normally associate with jade. In this image, you see that jade is not just green. Indeed, it goes from the ice white to black, including purple, brown, yellow, orange. So you see that it also is spotted with green and fully green. And you see that, again, this is jade that was used in ancient times. This was an outfit of the Emperor Liu Yan. They were all different elements of jade. The Chinese dragon that was made in jade. And think that in China, every time they have the sign of the year, so it could be the snake, the dragon, the pork, the buffalo, and so on and so forth. And that, jade is the best preferred stones in China. So you have to have something if you want to sell something in jade, it is jadeite that they want. This is the chemical composition of jadeite, which is different from nephrite, but I don't want to dwell on that. Look at the colors you may find associated with jade. And under certain conditions, this jade is completely translucid, so much so that it looks as if it were clear. What you see there are jewels of an exceptional quality. Indeed. What is the shaded color which is most requested by the market? Well, as Loredana was saying, jade is the most important in China. But what color? Well, there are many different color jadeites that are all non-treated, and there is one specific type which is very much appreciated. It is apple green and nearly clear, very similar to the one that you see at the top. And there is another very well appreciated type of jade, which is completely clear, because in the East, when they tell you what they like about a certain material, what they appreciate is that the material has to seem to look as if there was water inside. They're very romantic when they think about their gemstones. Much more so than us. They look at gemstones with a much keener eye. You see that it is not always homogeneous. There can be color variations. But the color Azzurra was referring to is called imperial jade because it was the one that was used for the emperor. The top quality was only to be devoted to the emperor. We could all buy it now if we wanted to, but it costs quite a lot. This is another color for jade, and this is the lavender jade, as it's called. Unfortunately, the colors may not be natural, but may be the result of dyes and treatments. With jade, sometimes we have different treatments being used. Look at that vase of jadeite with a lamp inside, and you see that it is translucent. It is not opaque. You see that the material allows for the shifting of light as if it was opaline. Jade has a specific feature in that it is a very robust stone. It allows for etching and incisions. So at times you can have plates with very thin thicknesses and won't break if they fall on the floor. This is why it's greatly appreciated, because you can have, again, these plates etched. It is a very sturdy, it is very resistant, and jade withstand different ill treatments in a way, because it is very sturdy. And as a matter of fact, this is why it is so greatly appreciated. Here you see more examples of jade. In this case, there's one picture of jadeite coming from Myanmar. It was called Chinese, not because it would come from China, but because they loved it in China. So as I was saying, at times it comes from Myanmar. It may also come from Guatemala. At times we have white jadeite or black jadeite coming from Guatemala in Russia. We also find deposits of jade, and the same is true for California and Japan. Let's have a look at the type of treatments. So there's a pot with some wax. So the adding of paraffin or wax is widely accepted because it is a way to polish it and to add the polished effect. I could decolor the stone on at a plastic level, that leads also to B jade, or you may have dyes being used for C jade. So what they want in China is a China. They don't a jade. They don't want nothing else but a jade. Jade is jadeite. In nature, it could be found joined together with another mineral, which is called amphasite. The difference being that there is a sodium in jadeite, that calcium in the other one, but they are naturally occur together at times. In the past, they would only accept jadeite, and now there's a very few of it, so they also accept opacite. If you perform a gem test, you might not be able to distinguish them. And now they called Fei Chui, the green option. So they wanted to have the mineral untreated. I'd like to show you also nephrite, which is very similar. It is darker in color. It's called spinach green. And here you see the mineral coming from different areas. New Zealand on the right-hand side. As a matter of fact, this was called as the jade from New Zealand. It was used by local populations from the Maori who would make their talisman with nephrite. You may find the nephrite also in Italy, in Basilicata and in Liguria, if you want to look for it. The one in the picture comes from Korea, and you see that you may also find it in Valmalenco. At the bottom of the slide, you see nephrite coming from Valmalenco. They are come with very large stones. In Russia, it was used also for the flooring. At times we use granite, and they would use nephrite because they had a lot of it at home. Are we tired already? The way you are telling us this story is something beautiful. I like these gemstones very much. And then you find additional stones, tiger's eye, buffalo eye with some crucidolite. It depends very much on the degree of oxidization. There's a reason why the colors are different. Well, this is something that you would only find on mineral trade fair. So you would find tiger eye only very rarely. What happens is that this material is being used more often also in high-end jewelry. Here again, you see Bulgari and Pomellato, Van Cleef as well. And you see that they use it for rings. The one by Pomellato is something that they greatly appreciated, and I really like the material they used. And, you know, sometimes people ask for it. Indeed, this is, again, part of the materials that are most appreciated at present. You should imagine that in the case of important high-end jewelry, there's a criterion whereby you should have straight stripes, or you should have it cut according to a certain principle. But this is not easy because this is not industrial product. You're not asking for some screws from steel industry, you know. You should try and explain to the final consumer that you might not require for your stripes to be in a specific position. So you see the product once it's cut, or do you find standard cuts? Well, you see, each brand might ask for specific positioning of the stripes. Well, whatever you see is always customized, even if you think that it might come as natural. In this case, the material is not considered as a precious gemstone. The tiger's eye is considered as a sometimes gemstones are considered as having no value, but this is not the case at all. This is another material which is greatly appreciated and reused, and that is called Sedoni. This is a microcrystalline quartz. chalcedony usually is blue in color, light blue, and then you can have different names for the other types. You know what's the name for the black chalcedony? This is called onyx. This is black chalcedony. And onyx is not always 100% black. It may be also blue, but the market only wants it black, totally black. And so at times it is dyed. Now you see additional examples of chalcedony, and the use of chalcedony also in high-end jewelry. You see very specific shapes in jewelry. As times it is used together with other stones, with emeralds, for example, by Cartier. And you see that there are some combination of colors with light blue chalcedony and pink chalcedony in a ring by Cartier. At times it is used with diamonds or quartz. So you see the combination of different value stones. I don't like the prism very much, but apparently it has a market to it. There are those appreciating it. This is another beautiful world, the world of agate. Agate usually comes with bands. You see that there might be some kind of eye-shaped patterns. Why do I like this agate? Well, because there's no two pieces looking the same. So this is very unique material where all the patterns are very specific. You can find the explanation of where the name agate comes from. There's a river in Sicily after which it was named. There's also a wonderful type of agate coming from Madagascar, and you might find the very different ones at times with inclusions of different oxides. So, for example, we call this musk or dendritic agate, and these are used by jewelers with every one single piece being unique. So you could say, for example, that you have a ring with an agate that looks like nothing else. Another gemstone that I'd like to cover is opal. Opal is a precious stone. It has play on color. We call it arlequin in Italian, and this is the one which is most precious and most expensive. But opals can also have homogeneous colors. You can have yellow opals, you may have orange opals, or blue opals, or pink opals, where this material is pretty more abundant than the other one and less costly than opal. This is used also by bucciolati, for example, in this recent piece of jewelry. Which one do you like better, the pink or the blue one? Well, the pink one. I like better the pink one. The pink opal comes from Peru. And this is a material that has quite a strong color when it is in of good quality. And depending on the place where it is mined, you may have color changes over time, or you may have other remaining stable over time. So you have to know what purpose you want to use your stone for, so as to make the best choice and not to come up against problems on the way. The blue opal is beautiful. It is quite specific as a hue and everybody love it, but unfortunately it is not stable. Just think that opal is one of the most difficult stones to study from a gemological perspective, because opal is an amorphous material made up of silica that could be crystallite, which is a specific material, and the color can be due to hydroxide or to the mineral inclusion. So when it comes to the scientific analysis, they are quite difficult to analyze, and so if there is a prevalence of amorphous substance, so you have a specific color. Oftentimes, as Zurlino said, you can have a scattering phenomena with the light being scattered. So why do we look at the sky and we see it blue? Because of the scattering of light. And this is not stabilized? No, it is never stabilized for some reason. So it is used as it is. Obsidian, in this case, looks as if it had snowflakes on top of it. This is one type. And this is difficult to use. Well, it's very difficult to combine it in an object, considering the size of the snowflake. One of the most important features of this mineral is, again, the snowflake. But in the same element, you might find flakes of different sizes. So it is not homogeneous. It is not used very often in jewelry. It was used in the past. It is a volcanic glass that it was used to develop weapons. In Mediterranean, a lot of obsidian was used to make weapons. Obsidian was used also to do a bead that is used as a lucky charm. You can find it in the Sardinia, for example, near Oristano. Our holidays are just over, but I would like to show you the amazonite, which is a mineral called a microcrystalline. It is a feldspar, a potassium feldspar. And this comes in beautiful colors as well. It is a green, blue with whitish bands or with whitish veins. There's an image that makes you think about the color of amazonite. So there are stones that remind you of something natural, of the colors that you find in nature. The same colors are to be found in certain gemstones. Chrysocolla was used to be melted with gold. It has industrial uses. This is a very specific stone. Only recently did we find the mineral that may grant this color. Did you ever hear about verdite? Well, this is another material that was used in the past, especially in Africa. Indeed, we find this material. And that could be used instead of jade. How about pink? Rhodochrosite. This is something that I like very much. It is another manganese carbonate. Calcite is a calcium carbonate with a pink shade. It is called rhodochrosite. It may come as clear crystals that at times look more orangey than pink. There's one problem with this stone. It is very soft, hardness number 3, and it can be attacked by acids, as is the case with pearls. And this pink can be obtained with rhodonite. It is a manganese silicate in this case, rhodonite. I was dressed differently, and I had rhodonite on my earrings. I bought it from a friend. I still have it. I still have those earrings. At times you would buy gemstones because of their color. You know, it's something that you do based on some kind of affection, not because of the value of the gemstones, but because you like it. Do you know, I bought many gemstones and I was not interested in knowing whether they were true or not. I never analyzed them because I just liked the color. This is another material that we may find, which is not the gemstones, because this is mother of pearl, and this is the inside lining of that we find on certain shells. It is a layering the inside of the shell. Once upon a time, mother of pearls were used just for buttons. So you remember that all the buttons of our sweatshirts, of our jerseys had these buttons. So then it is now used also for brooches, for brooch. Are you asked? I mean, do people ask for mother of pearl? Yes, they do. Well, sometimes people ask for mother of pearl coming from a specific area or for a specific color. Mother of pearl, which is more greatly appreciated in the collection of iron jewelry, should be white, perfectly white, and if it is colored, if it is greenish, for example, or pinkish, it might be requested. So sometimes only the pinkish shade is requested. As is the case with pearls, nobody wants the greenish outlook of mother of pearl. And yet you see that in the shell you can have different shades within the same material. So that those are the variations that you find in one single shade. As is the case with hair, sometimes you have one element that has different colors to it. Let me close this presentation referring to the fact that these gemstones were the ones that have been more frequently used in the past, also for treatments. Indeed, they've been used to heal certain diseases, and they also are symbols. In the Roman times, they were used as symbols of power, symbols of belonging to a certain class, or a symbol of protection. So we should always forget that this is the heritage in the use of gemstones. So thank you very much. I'm sorry if we are late. Well, we are more than 15 minutes late indeed. So one last word. What do you expect when it comes with the marketing of opaque gemstones? Well, I see it on the increase. So this is an appeal that we launch to the business community that they should consider also opaque gemstones. Quite so. There are wonderful colors with our gemstones. They are perceived as for their colors. So not only are customers interested in the value of the gemstones, but customers are very much attracted by the different hues, by the different colors of these gemstones. We often talk about lab-grown diamonds, but as a matter of fact, naturally we find quite extraordinary colored stones. Thank you very much. This is the end.